Hi, I'm Mark, and this is Foothill Paint Fabrication. Today we're going to be finishing up the flange replacement on the 1950 Chevy truck front fender. We're going to cut out the steel for it, get it flanged, and weld it on. So let's just jump right to it and get these fenders a little bit closer to paint. Okay, we got it cut out on the plasma cutter. What I did was I cut a little bit wide, just a little bit on the line, and then I taped the pattern to the steel, and then I just went up to the bench grinder and ground up to the line, right up to the pattern. So I just pushed in until I hit it, and then I just smoothed it out. I did that on that side. And then to get into the grinder, I flipped the pattern onto the other side. So now all I have to do is grind this side of it. As you can see, I'm just a little bit proud. So I'm going to grind this right up to the pattern and make sure it fits. You could do this, clamp it to a bench, use a angle grinder, but the bench grinder works out really well. I can push it right in and guide it right along. So I just push up to the line and just keep moving down, and then I just smooth the whole thing out. And then where the tape's holding it on, then I just peel that off, and it's really easy to connect the dots. So all we have to do is this side, and then we're done. We're going to drill a hole, and then we're going to probably flange it, and then bend it around that radius. So let me bust this out in high speed here on the bench grinder, and then we'll be ready to finish this part off and see how it fits. Okay, I've got it all ground to shape. Finished it off with a flapper wheel on the angle grinder. So now we're going to drill the mounting holes for where it bolts onto the cab. So let's go ahead and get that done real quick. Okay, so now we have our marks perfect spot by using the old flange. All right, so we need to locate this one last hole. So I put some bolts through the template, the pattern, and then we're going to do the same thing, but just being extra careful because that paper is not going to do anything for us. So I'm just going to eyeball it the best I can. Okay, we have all our fender mounting bolts done. There we go. So, I'm going to deburr this, and the next step is putting the flange on it. Okay, got my flange tool here. It's just Harbor Freight. The flange actually matches pretty well to what the original was. So this is pushing the thickness capacity of this flange tool, but it should be able to do it. So I'm just going to run it around and get the offset set, and then we're going to have to see if we can bend it around to make it the shape. I want to flange it first because I won't be able to flange it after. We're going to elongate it, just set it in, and since this is a little thick, I'll take a little bite at a time. Okay, we've got it all flanged now, so it's feels pretty good. It didn't distort. Clamped it down to make sure I went nice and even. So I don't know if you can see the flange on there. Gives it the offset. Like I said, it's pushing the limits on this this flanging tool. So, but it did it. So it looks pretty good, nice and smooth. So that'll sit up, the fenders here, and that'll sit up right there, and then we tack this up underneath or through with some plug welds. But before we can do that, we need to bend this to the shape of the fender, because this part rolls up and then goes up to where this bends over at a 90. All right, we've got the flange up on the fender. What I did was I lined up the bolt hole on the fender to the flange, and then I put a 1/2-inch bolt in there, so that's located properly. As you can see over here, this part's just a little long from fitting in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tweak it a little bit to get it to go inside. And looking at the flange, it looks like it's a pretty good fit here. If I bend this up out of the way, the flange comes in pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp it. A little tweak on this here. And the problem with drilling this last hole first is it creates a weak point there. So as I try to bend this around this radius, it's going to want to kink right there. So I have to be very careful. The other option was to get it in here and then lay the template in and try to drill that hole, but I don't know that I would have got it in the right spot because of the radius. So it could go either way. To keep from kinking it right here, I should, maybe I should have just drilled a small hole, and then it wouldn't be such a risk of kinking it right there. So, but live and learn. Next time, maybe I'll do that. Let's see how it goes. We'll see how bad this tries to kink. So what I'm going to do is, it's lined up there against the flange and the fender. So I'm going to put a clamp right there. Let me grab another big clamp. Then I'm going to bend this up here and I have to kind of pull it in and then clamp it at the same time. The good thing about this is I don't have to worry about distorting this fender really, because I need 3 hands here. Get a little bend on that. I do need 3 hands. When you work alone, you got to get creative all the time. So this will be my 3rd hand right here. Just use this squeeze clamp. Kind of hold that up. Hopefully it stays. That way I can rotate this down. And before I weld or do anything, I'm going to make sure that as this piece lays here, it matches the other fender. So I want it. Luckily, we've got a good fender that the piece is still in. So, because when I'm pulling this on here, I can feel it stressing a little bit, because this was pretty flat, and then it rotated and radiused around here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab another clamp, and we're going to clamp it right here, and then I'm going to slowly try to bend this up around as far as I can go, and then I have to estimate the 90 on here and hope I don't screw that up. So we're going to go ahead and pull it away a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and clamp that right there so I know it stays straight, and then we're just going to manhandle this thing a little bit to get the radius we want. And I'm going to get the Sharpie. So I'm going to start where I'm going to mark where the start of the bend is, which is about here. And then I'm going to mark where the end of the bend is. I'm going to try. I'm going to guesstimate on that about here. So since this part hits right here, I can't get any higher, I'm going to have to take this and bend it now, and I'll radius this around by hand, and then I'll fit it on the outside, and then we'll be able to slip it up underneath. Okay, to get the radius, all I did, this is a piece of old well casing, I think. I forgot even where it came from or what I was building with it. So what I did was, took a clamp, clamped it on there, and then just bent it around. When I got to the kink, what I did was just pull it down, pull it all the way down, and then just hammer that out. Okay, so this is actually bent too far, too much of a radius right now, but it's easier to get that radius out while I'm holding it out on the outside of the car, or the fender, excuse me, and then get that to match. So let's move back over to the fender. I'm going to bolt this down onto the fender on top instead of underneath, and then we're going to keep messing with this until we get this radius to match what's on the fender itself. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to use that hole and put that bolt back in. And now you can see why it's so important to get that first hole lined up perfectly. And then I'm going to clamp this down gently. Get a little more oomph on it than that. And then I'm just going to bend this down around. As you can see, we could force that in there, and it's almost perfect right there. So I need to take some out right here, and maybe add some here in the middle. So I'm going to take some out. We may have to go back over to that piece of well casing and add a little bit in this area right here. So now we're looking pretty good right there, but you can see we're forced in there a little bit, and that's because it is hitting right in this area. So I need to add a little more bend here, and I think I can safely do that if I stay away from that hole. So what I want to do is come in and clamp it, and it'll isolate that hole a little bit, and I'm able to just tweak this thing just a little bit like that. I'll pull the clamp, and we'll see if it wants to stay. So that's looking really good. I mean, it's wanting to lay there. It feels like it has a little bit, it wants a little bit of a twist in it right up here. Yeah, I can see where it flares out, and then it wants a twist right here. So we're going to give it what it wants. I don't know if I twist that by hand or not. Yeah, that worked. All right, and of course we're on the outside, so this is going to fit tight right here, because when we go on the other side, then it's going to be a longer radius going around there. So we may be really close right here. So I can't fit it up underneath here because I have this tank sitting up. This has to get a 90-degree bend, and then it'll lay up underneath here and be tacked, so it brings all of these pieces together. So the next step is to kind of clamp this into place, calculate the thicknesses, and then make a line on here where to bend it, and hopefully I get it right. So I'm going to take a few minutes to get that done off camera. Okay, I got it bent. Just used the little sheet metal bending pliers, vice grips here. What I did was I laid it out, and my mark was at the bottom underneath here, knowing that the thickness plus the drop from laying on top to going underneath, and basically I think hopefully I got lucky. So we're going to go ahead and try it out here. Sit the alignment bolt in. If we put a little clamp on here, get that clamped, squeeze this in. All right. So right here, I know it's hard to see, but that is laying right up against, I can't even get my fingernail in there. So that's really good, and it's not stressing the fender. Got a little bit of a kink right there on my hole. I'll take that out once I get it tacked in place. but this fits really well. I got to do a little cleanup on this edge. It's a little jacked up. But all in all, this is looking really good, really, really good. So we are about ready to tack this thing in. Now I don't have any sprayable or a weldable primer. It'd be nice if I could brush some on into the seam right here, but I do have some anti-rust coating. I've had that can forever. I don't even know if it'll spray, but what I plan on doing is spraying up underneath here and spraying this piece where the two pieces pinch together, because you're never going to get paint or anything. You're never going to be able to seal it. At the factory, obviously they just pushed bare steel together, stamped it, and then they just sprayed these. I'm sure they didn't dip them back then. So you have a spot where moisture could get in there with no protection. So I'm going to go ahead and spray it and read the instructions. I don't know if that's weldable, but if not, I'll put a little piece of masking tape wherever my spot welds are going to be, and then most of it's protected. Then the heat is going to cook the paint a little bit. But yeah, this came out really nice. So next step, we're going to drill a couple of holes for some spot welds, and then we're going to get this prepped up to spot weld in place. And I'm going to double check, make sure I didn't screw anything up and everything matches the other fender. All right, so I got the part primed over here with some rust corrosion preventative paint. It's yellow. I don't know. I don't even know where I got the can, but that's what it says on the can. So I masked off everywhere there's going to be a tack. Make sure I got good connection there. But I had to make some changes off camera. I was double checking all the measurements, which you can't do enough. So I measured the old fender from the other fender from the edge here to the edge of the hole, and it was 1 1/8 inches. Then I came over here and measured these, and they were 1 3/8 inches, which is not good. Then I brought the old, the rusted one out over here and clamped it back exactly where it was, and the holes were 1 1/4 inches from the edge to there. So what turns out is this flange depth is just a little bit short of the other one. So making this part exactly like the other one, it caused that flange to be a little narrow, so when it slid over and hit, it held the holes back a little bit farther. So I was already planning on cleaning this line up anyways. It was pretty jagged and had some rust spots on it. So what I did was I took just a little bit off of there, and that brought us in. I didn't even have to take 1/8. I just took a little bit off. There were a few high spots here and there that brought us back in. So now, and I had to clean this up over here. It was way too fat right here, which I knew. So now when I clamp it, that's my dimension I want to make sure I hit. So I've got it bolted down at this end. I've got it brought in. I'll put a clamp on it, be a little tighter. Pull that in there tight, and then we can get a measurement with this old worn out tape measure. And we are 1 1/4 inches. So we might be just a little big on that, but I know these holes will line up on the truck. So the way it's going to go, I'll start down here. I'm going to get a couple of clamps on here, make sure these are pulled tight as possible. You want them pulled as tight as possible when you're going to plug weld this. Now you can drill all the way through and plug weld, put a backer back there, or you can just drill one of them, and then when you start the MIG, you have to make sure that the wire hits dead center, otherwise you'll just end up welding the hole shut. So these holes are kind of small. Usually you want a little bit bigger hole, but along this the side here, I can't really go any much bigger. It's just going to weaken it. So I'll be extra careful when I tack these and make sure that I get it done right. All right, I've got the welder turned up just a little bit from where I was doing the butt weld, and I'll make sure I get the wire right dead center in the hole. Want to keep moving clamps around. Make sure that thing is pulled as tight as possible. Not that close. I'll end up welding my clamp to the fender. That's no good. That's good right there. Just a little high. There we go, it's a lot better. Okay, the last one, there's 3 layers of metal right here. So I want to make sure I get it pulled up real tight. Make sure that's down in there really good before you start welding. Look for any holes, any pinholes. Got one right here. Okay, so it's all tacked into place. I'm going to run a grinder over all these, and then I'm going to have a pit, a little volcano on this one and this one, a little impurities pushed up while it was still molten. So I'm going to grind all these. Then I'll touch them all up, and then I'll grind them all perfectly flat and smooth. This does push up against the cab, so this all needs to be nice and flat through here. But other than that, we're looking really good. Okay, that about wraps up this episode of the 1950 Chevy pickup, a 3100. We got the right front fender all taken care of here. Replaced some rusted out areas on the skin itself, and then totally replaced this flange that we had, several inches missing here that was just totally rusted away. There was nothing left. So I'm pretty happy the way it came out. It should fit back on the truck perfectly, and we didn't distort or damage anything, so it caused us more work down the line. The other fender just had a couple little spots that were extremely heavily pitted that I just replaced a few little spots there. That was really easy to do. So I'm glad the way it came out. I'm looking forward to moving away from patch and rust and getting into some prep for paint. So next time you see these fenders, the fronts and the rears, we're probably going to be blocking them out and getting them ready for primer and seeing all the dents and ripples in it and see what we can do about fixing those. So join me again here at Foothill Paint and Fabrication. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you.